other book is the class book, but the recitation book was first. On page number 10, we'll say each verse in Tibetan 2 times, and afterward we'll say in English. In English, on page number 11, I take refuge in the Guru, I take refuge in the Buddha, I take refuge in the Dharma, I take refuge in the Sangha. From now until my enlightenment, I take refuge in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. And by the merit created this practice, may I attain the state of Buddhahood for the benefit of all sentient beings. May all sentient beings enjoy happiness and causes. May all sentient beings be free from suffering and causes. May all sentient beings never be separated from joyful bliss. Your whole situation beats the side of equanimity, free of bias, attachment, and envy. This ground unconflicted, strewn with flowers, Mount Meru, encircled by the four continents, surmounted by the sun and the moon. I visualize this Buddha field offering. May all the beings enjoy the purity. Hani samalu şokitaştiliğiz.
Good morning to you all. Thank you for coming and to this morning's discussion.
Hani 당아주 단당하는 동반동고를 아니 nomba들도 잠중원도 당소 아니 상지 논이 동합병한 그 종의 상지 좀 던디 세트가 직전에 상지를 잡수초 세대 진짜 때 가르치는 잡순도 그러나 되게 상지 좀 던디 그런 거 연든 특이지 연든도 탐질라니 니 장거인 세트다 칠라 잡수초 세대로 따때 장알아랑 마당 조당 틀리 냠대 용큰 거 아니 지금 대당 사통불라 네비 단다와르다 상지 좀 던디 논이 동네 단다버다 길위 네 마코리 럼비 치기든 증긴 거 아니 겐든 공조도 탐질랑 잡스 레와주고 있는 전에 어떻지네 아니 통마 잠루드 상고르스 잠루드 상고르서 텔라테네 남바 상지기 종라 상지기 지슨지기 아니 칠라 소종지긴 소종지와라 아니 쪽겐든 더지와라 레와주고 있는 세트 semnanga tangbo zongoresi.
Okay. So before we touch upon today's formal discussion, and I'd like to remind you all and the importance of the generation of a refugee mind, or the mind which is seeking for the protections from the Buddha Dharma Sangha. Here, when we meditate on or try to develop the mind of the refuge, it is important for us to remember that there was a historical figure who appeared to this very planet Earth about 2,500 years ago, and generally we refer to him as Buddha, and in Tibetan Sangye means the enlightened one. So the development of the mind of refuge requires us to first go think of Buddha and the enlightened one. And he is the true protector, and he is the teacher and guidance, and then to whom we place all the hopes of spiritual, the hopes of our spiritual enlightenment. And so that's what when you think about Buddha in such a way, that means you meditate on practicing the first components of the refugee development of the refugee mind, that is seeking the protection, taking refuge in Buddha. And then, so while you are reflecting upon or meditating on Buddha, you obviously, and the thinking, you obviously have the reason to choosing to do so is because of Buddha's enlightenment policy, right? And that is Dharma, that is a path, right? And that's the ultimate solution, or the guidance that leads you to the state of enlightenment. So when you think that the very reason you could seeking for the Buddha, seeking the refuge in Buddha, and by thinking of his enlightenment policy, that means you are now developing the second aspect of the development of the refugee mind, that is that you are taking refuge in the Dharma. Then you also think about well, that's my fundamental goal is right, to attain enlightenment, and by depending upon the enlightened teachers such as Buddha, and through or by the practice of, by the means of practicing his the enlightened quality that he achieved, right? I do need that in order to attain such a goal. and be successful, I do need to depend upon not just the Buddha and the Dharma, but depend upon and the highly accomplished, enlightened, noble one. So during that 2,500 years period of time, we know there's numerous group of individuals who have attained, who become enlightened, and we call them the Sangha, or the noble enlightened ones. So we're looking at them, looking upon them, taking them as our mentor, and asking for and help from them. So when you, yes, consider the Sangha and especially those who enlightened, the enlightened ones, haven't yet and the Buddhahood in itself, but is enlightened, highly enlightened, then you place your hope for the attainment of Buddhahood in such a way, that means you are developing the third aspect of the refugee mind, and that is seeking protection and in the Sangha.
다 니와텔라네 결정은 성지 공조 잡수는 수주 치 공조라 잡수송네 람라 장한테 네급거네 라조비 공부도 발로서 반디 중용고 단당아도 띠 니와텔라 상치버드 donno 잡수지 덕지 속지위 총는 롤라펀지 성지를 벌써서 되게 다 탁과침 불람라시 바리 탁과침 불람나 가르시는 게 아니 성지 좀더 교지 지스당니 심지 탐지기 돈등이 바로 드신 바틀라 장기인 지금 장링아 몸을 좀 성지네 성지야 심지 탐지라 반도지기인 삼로도 지고 뜻다 탁과침 불람라 식송어다 근데 진짜 탁친 기람라 식배 자꾸 그러지.
Okay. So when you, in general, just like we described, right, but based on your understanding, by following the very reasoning in reason you developed it, so that means taking the Buddha as your ultimate spiritual teacher and keep the enlightenment qualities that the Buddha have achieved or developed, perfectly developed and achieved, and as the path or the means, and to assist you, to help you, guide you, and then by depend upon seeking for assistance from the Sangha, members of Sanghas, the Sangha community, and place hope in the Buddha Dharma Sangha in such a way. That is, you are practicing Buddha Dharma, and you develop the mind of the refuge. That will help you, generally speaking, and to attend the enlightened states, which we call the Arhat. In other words, will assist you, help you to become an Arhat. And that is kind of incomplete the state of levels of enlightened states. However, and so based upon this solid mind of the refuge, now you are thinking that just become Arhat is incomplete as far as the enlightened state of enlightenment is concerned. It's incomplete and it's incomplete and also not it's not the perfect enlightenment. So therefore, you develop a mind, and that mind is focused on the idea of the idea that I wanted to become a Buddha, and for the sake of all sentient beings, and in order to do that, to achieve that, I will depend upon the 6 perfections of wisdom. Right? By generating such an altruistic mind or intention, and not just content with by the fruits or the attainment of Arhat, but rather look upon the sentient being and their needs and their benefits. So therefore, develop the mind of enlightenment then wanted determined to attain enlightenment for the sake of all sentient beings, then you are, once you develop this mind or towards a kind of determined to develop such a mind and successfully, and then you are moving to the path of Mahayana.
Sata 다 탁받침보 람라 시그니카를 지금 인즈나 다 참여지 공고 참여지다 담고니 나랑 대원도 봐 나진 심지 탐지 대원도 봐래 나랑 등음도 봐는 심지도 등음도 봐 직발에 등아주 참마 직발에 랑진 탐지 심 자님지 어떻다고 그랬어 자님지니 냠보지 동네 냠보지 사송나더니 나랑 등을 있잖아 삼비 삼로도 참마 심지 탐지라 요래 되나 심지 탐지 등을 있다고 소지 세워 tower dak chaw nyam samlut nyangjiro nyangjite ya gomni ga jane ani ta dingal ta sona karayo ne dewa tang da te simji tamji ti tang namba tamji dewa tang da ba ta ki dewa tobar shochi tobar jirchi tobar shaw tobar dak chaw samde teni samlut china te shambare shamba gomyong so ta simji tamji dewa tang dan deyong so semna sosorang namji dewa kipodong dewa 분수 속바는 수sem나 가와키기도 가와키와 나지 심지 탐질라 분수 속바 용하다 탐질 어떻게 역고래 심지스 이런 거 가와 건바이나 다 가와 참여 심지 탐질라 뭐 가와 참여지 네 참여지들은 뭐 진짜 검토해나 역고 요래지.
Okay, so after you develop the altruistic intention or the bodhicitta, the mind of enlightenment, and so now, as far as the practices are concerned, and what is next? So how you're going to pursuing and move forward and to attain the perfect enlightenment, like you determined to do for the benefits of all sentient beings. So the practical method or the path that you're going to adopt and you're going to perfecting that can be summarized by the development of the mind of four immeasurable thoughts. Right? The mind of four immeasurable thoughts, and or take it as a means to attain to achieve what the goal you have set up. So here we know the way to develop the four immeasurable thoughts is based upon the clear and very sincere understanding that just like you as an individual, you do desire to be happy and you do desire to free from the sufferings. So take that very innate desire of yourself and then then think about the others, right? The infinite others. As far as this desire to be wanting to be happy and wanting to avoid the suffering, there's no exceptions being made between you and all other sentient beings there. So think of this way and then meditate on that. And will bring you to the state of equanimity. Right? Here, you are perfectly, you see that the desire, right, from the desire to be happy, desire to free from the suffering concerned. So there's no any difference between you and the others at all. So see that it is undifferentiable. There's no difference at all. That is the state of equanimity, right? And so then from that point of the deeper understanding of perfect understanding of the equanimity, right? And then you generate the mind that you want to bring the joy, the happiness, and to others, right? And then after that, you think about so not just giving the temporary and happiness and to bring joy to others only, but you want try to separate the sentient beings from the form of suffering they are experiencing, they are enduring. And you are essentially is thinking that you want to create, or what do we call it? Try to you wanted to create or achieve some kind of the aspects of separation. What does it mean? Create aspect of suffering. That means you are trying, right, by assisting them to help them to be able to separate those suffering sentient beings, be able to let them get rid of the suffering and the causes of suffering. So that is what we call it separation, because now once you're separated from your current experience of agony and dismay, stress, and so on and so forth, right? That very aspect of separation is the state of the liberation, right? So you develop this genuine, strong, and powerful mind of wishing and want to help others, separate them, free them, or make them be able to free from the experience, the stressful and the painful experiences. So that is essentially is the compassion, right? So first of all, right, you develop the mind of equanimity, right? You see no difference between you and others at all, and then you develop this the second form of second imaginable thought that is. You want to bring the joy, happiness, and all the good things to other, and then you determined to help those individuals lead all the such suffering sentient beings and out sort of get out of the state, samsaric state where they are experiencing suffering. That is the compassion, and then you looking around on the sea, wherever they are, and now, so they have this state of the joy, and then they also achieve the state of separation from the suffering, causes of suffering, and then you deeply and rejoice and deeply happy that now that all sentient beings are appreciating and happy and fulfill their desire of liberation. And so then you deeply, yes, this is meditate on the state of a mind or the mind of rejoicement. And this meditation on this mind of rejoicement can give yourself a lot, tremendous, what do you call it, delightedness, or to become very delighted. So this is how as the individual practitioner, once you generated and developed the mind of enlightenment of bodhicitta, and so that you can substantially, right, and place your make those four immeasurable as your focal sort of object of your practice.
뜻은 참이 지금 전에다 나도 만다푸요라 만다코데 네. 딱상 공고 딱 그래서 단단가랑도 마딱 배신건 나와도 탐지 섬지 탐지 그 얘기 요모도 사당라 소바 마와찬네 샴단 향지기 당니 자기 참이질라 소바 원비도기 니길라 샴냥지 상치 선라 소바 총용으로 랑진 그 사지 당마 딱 배신 특도 된다 사지 비지션 메도 좀 러랑진이 되게 맞을 검진된다 소소这当天都用那个等的拍出照片，啥是不是错吧？真的是，有的上去啥是必须买到，日浪是你的样嘛，上去上的没得包，的上去趟这个上的没得没你破坏的，如果那么多上的就不是说，如果他们真特别上的就是说去个什么，我的这就我们等下引导的那种，我都看见那东西或者是这什么那，这是我们他们那要很多些。
So Yes. So after basically, I'm here. What I'm trying to say is that try to remind you that in our daily practice, right, and at the beginning of each session, and we read, we're chanting the taking refuge and generating bodhicitta, right? That's what we do, and after that we do practice reciting the four immeasurables or immeasurable thoughts. So while after you develop the mind of taking a refuge and generating bodhicitta, and then so after you recited the four immeasurable thoughts, right? And then as we always do, we do make an opening and meditation of mandala offering, right? Opening meditation of mandala offering. So while you are practicing the opening meditation of mandala offering, and you are basically so that the process of mandala offering essentially is itself is that that process is the purification or is the practice of the purification or pure appearance, what we call it. So in other words, we are trying to cut off our impure, let's say, conceptual understanding, our impure, the appearance, the things, the events, or the images, right? Thoughts, whatever appears in our mind, which is considered impure or imperfect, right? And so it's not pure. But this practice of mandala making, mandala offer making, is in fact help you and to purify and transforming your deeply troubled conceptual understanding about the forms, which involve color and the sound and the taste, right? And the tangible the objects or the experiences that you have with the tangible objects. So all those things, while you are on the process of mandala offering practice, you do need to focus on the pure appearance. That is the appearance of the enlightened state of whatever the enlightened mind is seeing in the experience. In other words, it's the Buddha field, right? So you are aiming focus on the Buddha field mentally, and then think that all those 5 objects of desirable objects, right? Form, sound, and taste, tangible object, and the smell, right? All those are transformed in the state of the pure and pure form, and now you're taking them mentally and as an object of offering, and then you make the offering. You offer them to the Buddha. Again, you do this is because the motivation, all right, the driving, that which place the driving forces behind of this dharma practice is in immeasurable thoughts that so you wish all sentient beings and be happy. You want to bring the happiness, joy to them, and you want all sentient beings free from the suffering and causes of suffering.
어떤 자다 때론 보면 저한테 당보 아주 잠도 돈바르더니 아주 낭비 공라 해야 되니 타바침보 셈게 버스는 다진지 람라 타바침보 람라 시바 타바침보 대신 다 아니 뜬 덕성고마 덕성고미 다다랑 가서 값스법에 덕성고마 대화전지 상태 범죄 대화전지 답변 상태네 맞다고 직전 탐지 답변 상태는 또 다다 가정 아주 전제적 그 지고면 전제적 그 참여 지고면 또 상당량 지상주지 샘의 용서 결과리 아니 지 이게 바마당 다윗 기고 땅도 시 가오 지 검스라 시 가오 텔리니 오르티니 포차지 샤지 저지 시간이 있다 그 쇼고트죠 어떤 지 넌지 남크고음지네 디트카나 시 디타 고르데 오마네 파네 홈 이기 트부터 파 고라잡니 저들은 로르 트크네라 초니 심지 탐지 데키 당담을 저치 능등한 많이 서심견도 해지
Okay. Okay, now we're going to practice meditation, and then so meditation, as I give you each of you the so the instructions of the meditation. That meditation involves the practice of, as you can see, and from the sheets or from the whatever the imprint, so now take them as your reference point, right? And then, like we talked about, we have discussed it before. And first of all, you generate the mind of refuge, and so turn yourself religiously or spiritually, and to be the followers of Buddha, Dharma Sangha, meaning so your spiritual identity at this point is a Buddhist, right? And then based on that, take that your Buddhist identity as the base, right? Base of your spiritual practice. Now you can generate the mind of enlightenment, meaning that the mind of the bodhicitta or awakening mind. So now you not only just become a Buddhist yourself, but now you become the followers or the practitioners of Mahayana path. Right? And now, after you become the followers or the practitioners of Mahayana the path, the teachings of Mahayana, now you are going to engage in a specific meditation, a technique, a set of meditation, or the technique. And that is to meditate on the appearance of, you're involved, you're going to undertake in the practice called the meditation of pure appearance. Right? Simply speaking, you're going to meditate on the Buddha land. So this practice of Buddha land, or appearance of meditation of pure appearance is that now you take it and you look at, take it and observe, right? A quick, clear observation, and make a clear observation on the pamphlets or the information I give to you, and you that's to look at the appearance of Buddha of compassion, Jianli, right? And so now, so you meditate, yes, instantly, and so you transformed and into the state of and the realization, and so in that state of realization, and you see that the Avalokiteshvara and appear the sky in front of you, and then you see his heart, right? In the heart chakra, there's the seed mantra, seed syllable Shi, right, which is white in color. And then the Om Mani Padme Hum is circling around, Ako nga din part like that then the Oman home put hakora yora she get hakora. Yeah. So yes. So you look at the images, you know that yeah, the since mantra she is the center, and around and that is she. Then the Omani Bamun six syllables are around. So then you make then you reflecting upon that pure vision, pure appearance, and that appears in the work of Buddha land or the pure land, Buddha field or pure land, and so in this case, specifically is a Buddha Avalokiteshvara, Buddha of compassion. Then you're reciting, and then we all together reciting Om Mani Padme Hum, and for 300 times.
Oh yeah, that Om Mani Padme Hum don't look Mongso Shigor, that me saw Kashi, the junction. Om Seva the Lingri some Songori, some young terrace. Mani the Bamas, the Yiga and the Sheriff Dong Yangjini Chondon race. The Yin Home said the Jatong and the Denjong Yawari Chondon race, the Ngayam Tor, things are the Naranzu Jiki Rong Children the bottom. Marik Bay Ronga on the Donjon Yomo Tamchi Mewach and the Ting Opa, Shamyan Jitan, Sherping O Gerson, some or the rich money don't work. Rod Simji Tamchil and some Tana Tata Yotina, and Rod Simji Tamchi Yomo, Jimewach and some Sham Tapsi Opa Jesona, Rosing a Tapisan Chan or some Tapisan, some Chinese cooking, then there's some done in a Takshan woman, the money doing.
Okay, so speak of Om Mani Padme Hum, this the mantra, hot mantra of Buddha compassion. I guess most of you know because I have repeatedly explained that in the past. However, I see some of you here this morning, and it seems that wasn't here in the previous occasion while I explaining the Om Mani Padme Hum. So let me just quickly tell you and what that means. So again, when you recite the mantra of without compassion, Om Mani Padme Hum, think about this. Om represents the body, speech, mind of this represents the body, speech, of mind, and then Mani is represented the great compassion, and then the Pema is the wisdom, while the Inlet, the primordial wisdom, right? And Hum is the combination of the great perfection, the state of perfection of, and this the union of method, which is compassion, and the wisdom, and that is the actual realization of the ultimate reality. So, and in other words, technically called the MJ in Tibetan, or the dependent arising or dependent origination. Okay? So yes, so that's what you needed to sort of reflect upon or think about it, get a sense of so the meaning, the content, and of the very recitation of the mantra recitation of Om Mani Padme Hum that you are engaging. Put it in a simple way, okay, simply speaking, this is the recitation of Om Mani Padme Hum. In fact, is the very technique of the process through which we are transforming the continuity of our own mind. And the reason we need to do so is because right now, right, the continuation of the continuity of our mind, our consciousness of the mind is deeply involved or sort of polluted or contaminated by all kinds of disturbing emotions. Right? Ignorance, such as like the grasping at self of person and self-centered and egoism and so on and so forth. Right? and so aversion, so attachment, and so on and so forth. So therefore, we got to adopt the most effective technique to root out, right, or to eliminate those negative qualities which in this at the current moment is affecting us or is floating, right, within our mind continuation. So the way we doing that, again, it's not just for ourselves, our individuality's benefits, single individual's benefits, but rather for the benefits of all 6 types of sentient beings, right? And we wanted we focus on something for the to attempt to become Avalokiteshvara ourselves, and because we know that all 6 types of sentient beings are suffering this experience all kinds of sufferings in samsara. So therefore, we develop this the unification or the combined the state of mind represented by the upaya, that's the compassion, and then the wisdom. So through this way, by depending upon and adopting and then perfecting the practice of the union of wisdom and the compassion, then we will be able to, we can purify the continuity of our mind, which, as I said before, and currently been deeply involved, being polluted, contaminated. So this way, and this process of purification by means of reciting, meditating on the Buddha of compassion, and then eventually we will attain the Buddhahood ourselves. Of course, then all sentient beings forever, right? And reciting and adopting practice this methodology, and then they themselves also will transform it into from the ordinary sentient being and become the Buddha of compassion.
Oh yeah, that could be showing the English chapter, which is more English content. And the Shokushi term to understand.
Oh
yeah. So quick kind of review on the image of the Buddha of compassions. The Om Mani Padme, 6 syllables written in Tibetan, and so Om. Om is a white. That's the first one color is a Om. So if you write it down in English, visualize. Yeah, the center is a sheep, and the Om is the both white color, and the Ma is the green, and Ni is the kind of maroon color, yellow color. Sorry, and the Pet is a blue. Me is a red. Home is the also blue, dark blue. Yeah. So maybe you can able to visualize this. And on the left side is the Buddha compassions. And on page number 70, if you look, it has English here. Om Mani Padme, how to pronounce on page number 70. If you look on the first English, Om Mani Padme.
야, 다 가진 것도 되는 말로인다.
So,
대단나 더메비 따와 달라베비 찰라스 더메바 니 달라베비 고름 더메바 달라베비 찰링이소 당보는 강조당 풍부 치기 당즈 메비 달라하 샤바타 타락기 남바 종슬 메모경 거지 타락기 응기 네카워 칼라 요테스 데틀 헤진라소 바강조 로이트 처비 풍부즈글라 대기위 임친기 다가요기 남바 리퍼 요데 더터 멜롱 낭데 서비스 인인당 범낭 소기 다음에 뜻단람베비 거자 카로 종슬경 메모경 거지 로 자트 차르카 리앙기 데메트니 칼라 요퍼 라오 데터 셰르기 파로드 심바 데왈리 더 전라와 덴라워 섬진 탐질 탐질 시 섬진 탐질 진라와 덴로 치근 시송소 또와도 로즈나 아니 이거 홀로 되긴 되죠.
Now please go to page 120 and the middle. The way to determine the view of selflessness. This includes the order for establishing the two selflessnesses and agile techniques for establishing the view of selflessness. The order for establishing the two selflessnesses. Firstly, as explained above, although there is not the slightest differences in subtlety regarding the self which does not exist in phenomena, whether the basis is the person or the mental and the physical aggregates. Because of the differences in subtlety, the basis of a negation, there is a difference of ease in ascertaining the view. It is like this. In order for a person such as David Data to appear as an object to our minds, we have to depend on apprehending his aggregates. So his imputed existence can be established through reason. Thus, there is not the slightest differences in subtlety with regard to what is negated in establishing the selflessness of a phenomena, such as an image reflected in a mirror, a vase, or a piece of cloth. However, because it is easier for some basis of negation to appear to our minds, such as our own person, compared to other phenomena. It is correspondingly easier or more difficult to ascertain selflessness. Also, the condensed perfection of Wisdom Sutra says, just as you understand selflessness in yourself, understand it similarly in all sentient beings. Just as you understand the selflessness in all sentient beings, understand it similarly in all phenomena. The actual technique for establishing the view of selflessness have three aspects: how to how to determine the selflessness of person, how to determine the selflessness of phenomena, and how it depends on this persons and the phenomena appear like illusion.
어때 자단 니도 가르스나 다당 저당 치탐지 다음에 봐 임바 지금 손을다 로그 차등 원에 강석가 나도 치지다가 차벌 치용으로 어네 강석가 당서 남성아도 강석생 아주 남지 시에도 뭐도 알아서 늘 저기서 거요 말 때자다 됐어 그자데 남성 많이 받지 용거 치지 다음에 봤어야 돼 치탐지 당데 치탐지 가지고 그자 통지 어떻습니다 매르지나 멜리 메탕도 시에고나 깔리 하고 온다죠 된다 안에 로그네 그때 닐릭 문이 찍바요다 로그는 작당 문이 타르요리 도도 시에고다.
So what we have just read, in essence, is that so we're talking about right. Try to understand how to understand the selflessness of a person, or in other words, ultimate reality. In this case, like in the case of person, and what is the absolute or ultimate status or nature of a person? Right? It says that all the literature says the true status or the ultimate nature of the self of person is, in fact, is selflessness. When you think about the selflessness as ultimate reality, it makes no difference in terms of whether that very ultimate reality, selflessness, is applied to the in the case of an individual as a person, or in the phenomena in general, or anything other than the person. So yes, fundamentally has no differences, but the objects of the meditation, that because the object of meditation, meaning that the person versus the phenomena, because there are some kind of differences to be made, what you are meditating on, right? And it makes differences in terms of the realization, to achieve the realization itself, and it makes difference. So therefore, as far as the both nature, the ultimate nature of person, the ultimate nature of the phenomenon, and that there's no any slices differences. All of them are like the reflections on the images in the mirror, but the person versus of the phenomena, which constitutes the person, and there's some kind of on the process of this, while you're on the process of the realization, it makes difference, and because the object, although we can't find it, right? In both cases, you say, "Oh, I am a person," but when you really critically and looking for or try to search, right, find that, to locate that person, you cannot find it. Similarly, and you say, a body, my body, or the things you are talking about, critically and analytically try to reach out that very object you claim as your body, or you also reach the same result. You cannot just find anything. So in that regards, that the both natures, ultimate nature of a person and the phenomena are the same, but there is a difference you made. What you meditate on the person. Yes, the meditate on the person's ultimate nature of person, is the selflessness of person, is comparatively is easier than meditate on the ultimate nature of phenomena.
니와 더베탈라 베베 슬라 텔라 테니 강사동 치 여마타오 cer jama taw nang chlo se tang bon de la thomer je kan zang ngin zin chil la ngan zin than ki mgil kan zo tan jok pa na ken thin kyang se ti mgil te nyan thi dewa kha chi phombo nga cher tang kha chi sem chi bo to number shiwa zam ki chil marwa kan je
It's
she
11
ki shiwa
o'clock.
ta nyoyi ki kang la mg pa nga o nyam ba ki wi je kan jin ze chang so ye ki namjak ki zape number ripa cham ki chil marwa tang thokul lagdin ye ki jindang tang chiwi do diwa namji chotuk ki number shiwi gil kangzo tan jogde thokul lagdin ye ki sem ki ye kangzo tan jogbe dripshil longrik ni ki go ne tokin barwar drbo te tokin ki ta na kangzo ke phombo la te ne ta pe ta tagul cham tang tin chan ji ziyul re zin gi te tapchun jogpe thi tagdun chana nye ki yopa gi ki rangi chanyi ki madam na maybe lik so otabar lozna ti ote rang
How to determine the selflessness of persons? To begin with, this concerns recognition of what the basis the person is. All Buddhists agree that the focal object of the innate conception of an I is the person. For some, such as the followers of the hero tradition, the particular realist, the focal object of the conception of the person is the five mental and physical physical aggregates. For others, the person is only the mind. All mind only proponents of a mere consciousness who assert the existence of the mind basis of all consciousness take a basis in relation to which the thoughts of I arises when the disturbed mind focuses on it. Those proponents of mere consciousness who do not assert the collection of the eight consciousness and the followers of the master Baba Viveka, the middle way inherent validators, as well as the sutra followers, perceives the six consciousnesses, the stream of mental consciousness as the person. The master Baba Viveka established his assertion that the person is the mind stream by means of both scripture and logics in his plans of reasoning. All of them assert that a person is a mere imputation imputed to the mental and physical aggregates, and that its representation must be something substantially existent. This is because when its existence is being posited by valid cognition and the imputed object is sought, it must be foundable. For if it does not exist due to its own characteristics, it cannot exist at all.
tan dela nimzelo khashigo tangaro mi chama 토마키 용을 쓰는 nga se samdu yoro te chama nga se te kanin josar nganzin te nya nganzin sanchi zir nga su chig lob yo mar tomani de puchya ya samshin nga se te lam se ngor nga se te zig sa te kana zigre zir ta nganzin te tela te nganzin sanchi ki nga se tela te nga yi wa zin te ngi zir nga su gawi shok tela chapaki mangawi shok tela shedang ki oda chorwa dongyong gutela chorwa dongyong zir 지용 소조 아니 소도 가마가 처음에 처럼 외워 준 거죠. 또 간즈사 띵가드 가완디 진도죠. 다때 간 도선 나세때 망 도사때 가왈 놓고 요래지니 다저 지용 저 창면에 나세한테 봉볼을 때니 정도요. 넘바선지와 참마가 토마 간즈 한키티 무일 가르즈 코 무박 강라 무고르 강사라 무고르지니 땅 아주 강사진데 기우다 로세 기와세 뜻이거지 there's a music, the more there's a shigo marta, there is yours, Minzin in the Mukuras. That's some opportunity. I said, Zinzu Council said, Kawa Yore is such a song so on it. Then Jotamaro, Shetamaro, do the also Pombunga Kagatana Yore, Pombunga cutting our race, Shishangi Chikin word. And some Sambaga Namshi Korchika, same Chipu Mare Secretary, and Namshi Sotu the bit like just said. ngar sengi chur ane lagden ya ki jisen dangwi korchika ane namshi chotuk ginki nang tukpa yiki number siwi ginte ane ngare yesi o tan jokta mandawa jakore te jaga ngorso tan jolgi jokta mandawa jakore te changma jaga yor ma ona oma tamgiru ka ngorso te chama jaga yor jagarso chila zeo chila ta chini ta ngorso tina zeo te dopsona rikpi ngola rikpi ane 샤마 텔레스가 요바 삼탕테 산지 지울 린 종기 위 근데 자송에나 산지 코는 지우 시작 바지 요바지 렌드 코는이 요바지 종고 근데 때 자송나 자와니니 아니 같이 요마 텐종도 듣고보다 랑그 찬이기 마드나 메비셔로스 때는 랑그 찬이기 마드바에서나 메바찬도 그래 때 듣지나 딱딱 택이 요마래지니 딱 갑자기 오마 탐지루티 고파전에다 코로나 랑루티 올라 자가리
아까 그런 그 산시들 들어버리면 이런 그 산이들 들어버려 됐어 오신
또 잠때 산시 지울 산시 다 장교들 데르다니 강사세전 데르다 저기서 파적소나 또 그런 거 랑네 파 드바들 차는 거랬어 랑네 드바적소나 강사 지우 척송 그랬어 다일 착해요 말 아주 탐지를 가서 다일 답바 잠도 맞고 요 말서 거다 다일 착son하다 지우 착son나 덴드세 덴종부터인데 착고 말 코너랑에 들어와 착는 거래 뜻이거든 다 너무 되고 송도는 그다 뒤쪽
Okay. So here's the thing. In summary, if we try to get the sort of the essence of the paragraph we just read, what's going on, and when you apply to our own situation, and here is that we cannot deny we were born, and we are here, and we refer to or claiming and call ourselves as a person. And then, so for the sake of communication, and we identify ourselves, say me or I. So I is who we think that's our identity. So your I, our individual I, in that's what we believe that that's something that kind of is there, is true. And it's not just there too, and but we truly believe it, and that's the case. And this believe it that that is the case is not due to our involvement with any form of philosophical discourse, philosophical inquiry, or any form of systematical intellectual trainings. In fact, the sense of I and me is common alone with our own very birth. So that's called the inlet grasping of self-person. This inlet grasping of self-person who claim I am here, this is me, and so on and so forth. However, right, it seems very natural and it kind of you cannot really it's for sure and can true you cannot challenge it. However, we kind of step back or sort of stay aside of this very claim, that's very natural sense of assumption we made to say I am, because this is so it's just born with us. We ask a critical question. Okay, that where did that be? Where that's I you claim? Where? If you really want to find out, ask this question. So where, and then you will find out within the framework of a Buddhist system, Buddhist philosophical system, with respect to this very issue, or regarding how you determine and the selfhood, right, or the self as an individual, and so you will find that the following different the philosophical response or the philosophical assertions. So before we talk about that and those the different systems of who and how they determine and the existence of I, and we have to know that in that grasping stuff of person, which appear in our mind or occur to be very natural and common with our very birth. But if we just leave it as alone, right, do nothing about it, then we will naturally will fall into traps of two disturbing states of emotions, right? Actually, the three different states of emotions, which is that leading by that natural sense of I, me, right? And then we will attract to the things and the events, or the ideas, concepts, whatever. If it appears to be very attractive and favorable and pleasurable, we will attach to it. That's problem one. And at the same time, driven by this natural sense of, or the assumption of I, me, if we do not concepts, so on and so forth, which seems doesn't appear to be very pleasant and acceptable, or makes us feel challenged and threatening, and then we will, driven by this natural sense of I, right, grasping the self of person, we will reject to do that. We will reject to do whatever is appeared to be not pleasant and not doing our own favor, right? So that's the problem number two. The problem number three is that when we entering the world or the situation scenario where we don't see individuals or things, and which doesn't neither make us feel very pleasant and beautiful and attractive, no, or makes us feel annoying, right, and upsetting us, then we'll attempt to leave it alone and being a kind of put it in some kind of a neutral states, right? Then whereby so we just ignore, right? We ignore them. So those three problems and other serious problems, and those three problems causes occurs because of we didn't do anything, and we didn't critically ask in this inner sense of ourself or our individuality, right? So now, we claim I and me here, right? But what is I? What is where is I? Where and what? We ask this question as text says, and so first of all, if you go approach the followers of Shravaka or heroes, the systems of the philosophical system that followed by preserved, advocating by the followers of Shravaka or Sutrantika, and they will point out the five aggregates. Right? The five aggregates is the person, or five aggregates is that is the let's say that is a representation of the individuality of the person. Then others, and say no, that's not. And for example, like the followers, the philosophers, and who advocating the philosophical system of Yogacara, the mere consciousness, the school of mere consciousness or mind only, the school, they claim that the I is the mind, and within the system of Yogacara, the mere consciousness, and there is one in a particular group, a system which believes that or advocating the philosophic, the ideas of philosophical presentation of eight consciousness, or the alaya, the philosophical ideas of alaya, and then they claim that the alaya itself, the eighth consciousness, is the individual or the person, and others think that the mind itself is the mere mind is the individual self. Right? Now, if you go approach the masters or philosophers, such as the system of Madhyamika, right? And particularly the system that advocating by the Baba Viveka, right? Baba Viveka system, and then he and his followers were arguing that and the individuality or the person is the is a mere it's the production of existed through the label. In other words, it's a mere existed merely by the imputed by mind, or it's a mental imputation. However, it has its some kind of substantial basis, that is the aggregates, right? So all these philosophical systems who believe that there are some form of I, either is five aggregates, again, that's the kind of indicates or imply there's something is substantial, right? It's kind of persons are built upon the something that's substantial, such as the five aggregates, or the eight consciousness, or the mind alone, or the aggregates as the sample, or as the base of the person. So all of them either directly or indirectly suggested that individual exists or can be characterized under some kind of subjectively sort of owns some kind of objective qualities. Right? So this, from the Prasanghika Madhyamika point of view, right, all what they say, those systems and the philosophers they claimed before, whatever they say, it's clear that their philosophical presentation is fundamentally against the very teaching or essence of Buddha, that is dependent arising. Because things, events, which is if it's dependent arising, then you cannot own any the substantial, something that's substantial, something is can be considered as characterized, as something that's under or running or under exists by its own, right? So therefore, the Prasanghika Madhyamika, or the consequential, the schools of consequential and the philosophers, they do believe that the self or individual is not the five aggregates, it's not the mind, it's not mind alone, and it's not the eight consciousness or alaya, or the basis, something that's built upon and based upon the aggregates. So Prasanghika Madhyamika, or the consequential schools philosophers system, do believe that so-called I or me individuality is the mere production of our own mind. In other words, so the I is not, has not, is avoid, and is absence of anything that can be found or can be characterized and its own power. Because if you claim that the I or the person is owns, can be characterized in any way, so and its own, by its own, then that is the very sign of the real existence.
다 렁빌르그 다 렁르세 다 다와탁빌라 감질러 렁빌르는 로콘 다위 샵킹한 샵킹한니 지퍼 nganzin hanchil ki mugil phongbo yimba sawar kani chikachinjo jewar tenni tapit da mupr songwa tela ngao nyambi lo chimi kiwa gishang phongbo la ngao nyambi lo chimi ki ngao nyambi lo te makiwa rangi nyungwa tar nyungwa la TV se seshang kanzak kewa pamil papa soki korwa la soba da tarwa la sopi gajji pangbo la teni taba yin la pangbo ji tsokpa la tsokpa janji jetang jan je kanzak mayin te huina shangta rangi yanlag pangbo sok teni taba yin ki e yanlag riri tang tsokpa kangyang khangta mayin ba jint doli chitrin yanlag tsonamla teni shangta jopajin tejin pongwo nam teni ganzo semchin shi joto shi kanzak ki joksin dastawo na ngewo te kwana nyi nyirta tokpe tab zangbo shikte zigni namkin ki barji chi kin la rigbar rawo wata lozna ta tena di tsuti tongba rosre ta tangsku ya.
Now, it's our own system. Our own system comes from the words of the master Chandra Kirti, who in his supplements thoroughly rejects the premise that the focal object of Inlet conception of an I is the aggregates. in his commentary to the supplements by saying that the imputed self is the focal object. He implies that the thought of I must arise naturally in relation to it. And with regard to such things as the aggregates, the thought of mind naturally arises, never the thought of I. Since we reject the aggregates as being the self, only the thoughts of mind can arise in relation to them. The thoughts of I cannot do so because it arises as an imputation in dependence on the aggregates. This will become clear when we examine our own experiences. Every person, whether in men or women, an exalted or ordinary individual within cyclic existence or liberated from it, is designated independence upon the aggregates which form the basis of designation. In this regard, neither the continuity of the assembly of the aggregates, nor the assembly, nor the parts of the assembly, nor the continuity itself, nor even one to whom that belongs other person. Take an example of the chariot. It is designated independent upon its various parts, such as the wheels, nor of its individual parts, nor the collection of the parts is the chariot. Likewise, it is said in the Sutra, just as we speak of a chariot depend upon on the collection of parts, so we speak of a sentient being conventionally depend upon on its aggregates.
야, that did this kare ra ta samdong 이런 거죠. samdong de kar 송거즈나 퐁보라 땅에 가 자가이나 퐁보 땅다 랑신지 접소나 랑신 접하고 그래서 대지 그런 거 다다데 거기가 랑신지 접소나 그 레버드워 차는 거 같아. 나랑도 랑 그 산이지 접하 코로나 랑이니 랑신지 마드 바래. 마드비 접시 가르즈나 가지고 보통 보모세야다 지금 거기 살았던 베나 다좀버세로 tilset 참아네 그런 거 도지 땅라 파테니 작고 누가지 그런 랑이니 드비다나 티땅 남바 탐지 코티 베나 티땅 남바 보통 보모나 티땅 보모 다좀바네 티땅 남바 다좀버 랑진징은이 드버지고 그래 때 레기오 말았지 랑진 결완 딱 참아질라 테니 코망 딱 용어라지 텐자다 베나 다 올라 임진 거잖아 상타드니 셔도 뭔가 다도 상타드 가도데 타동 초용으로 다 나동 다다는 모델라 아니 빌 사마 모델 비슷한 걸 메드돈 어떤 모델 다지 모델즈도 모델세 디 강나 랑선바도 요 삼도 그래 이나 랑선바도 요나 당고년에 베 지금 좀 거랑 지금 좀 거를 요 말이지 비스 총총 지금 셔 리브네 때 조라 나 티는 그 비스 레디 진데 모델 레베 레베 진데 소나 니그 말이지 아니 텐차다 딱비 딱바 잠지 드바리 디 땅 상타 땅다 모다 땅다 모다 자네면 예빠나진 아주 풍부 땅 가세데 자네 얘기 말이 마딱 마치 빙올라 요하던 가로 sem그 용이 접거도 가시 아니 땅가로 지 남지 요 딱섬지 접거 요 매와 자네 매어 레고 말시 딱섬지 가도 용이 접거 요 용이 접을 그 접당데 자네 송아 코로나랑이 접바 자네 요 말 딱 망보 소용을 접바리 어떠시고 따뜻베나 벤촌도 지나 다닝 글로 지니 혼자 야가르게 무 압잘로도 메어서 송아 무때띠 좀 돈이 띠 대랑은 좀데 데페초메 세 말바르도 띠강라 무 차니도 참고르고 무 샤와노 잠만 로기요래 때 우레다 참마된 점바 요르 때 무진 참마 요르 때라 안에 디 버그네 가이네 저손 다주진네 모두 사이갑 타는 좀 때니 좀 때고 띵무 많이 봐 차소 때 그런 원래 지나 때 압jal로서 때 그런 랑잉을 핑고나 저비다오나 띠땅 남바 탐지 기로함 봤더니 요거다 때 요말 딱비 딱쯤서 딱비 노는 노통 때 당아즈 이난 듣고만 타니 참았어야 돼 딱고 때라 청구가 주고 된자다 맨날 미강아지가 졸스 대랑니 교 선진이나 고 선진 잠깐만 와 때 선진 차가라 그런 선이 망부 차네 오 대랑니 교 선진다지 망도 떠네 그게 자고 속소나 뒤기면 고 선진 차소 선진세 도저 강서 따가는 것만 말리기니 따가는 때다 때 다저 때는 따간다 따가서 기고니 고 선진 차소 선진 차소 니모더니 골로가 대랑기나 대랑라 고 니와도 차정요 참막 찹지 탑고요 때 참막 삼는 동안 네 랑지 제답 많이 봐 딱쯤이 봐 어따때 저거다도 소소소 감동미와라 삼던에 만다윈자 내 땅도 지금 내 요거 시요 말라 다 지금 시절로 특전로 시기 가자랬다 다 먹으면 봐자 카톡 근데 시적으로 식발 카톡 등에 동거요 말 어따 그런도 직진아 든디인도 직진아 저러서 나한테 내 땅로 시적으로 신이요 지라 어떻지
Okay. So let's see. Actually, guess what? I just realized I didn't finish the whole thing. Chicken din bong di jila mara song serva.
라
Do go dong di jini chicken mara te ba song der re.
차송
We sketchon kashi de do me do benzo da basni. Okay. I think I just let me finish the rest of it. Such a technique for determining the selflessness of a person is one of the best method for cognizing the reality of things quickly. The same reason should be applied to all phenomena from form up into the conscious omniscient mind in order to determine in such a way that there is no inherently existent person. We establish that there is no inherently existent I, and then that's there is no inherently existent mind. That it is, sorry, yeah, probably this much. Okay, now let's see. The challenges that we are facing now is about the status, right, or the reality of our own existence. In other words, the ontological, right, the ontological reality of we as individuals. Here, we just like to read it, right? Those are not our own positions, our own philosophical presentation. It is assumed that we all are the followers of Pasanka Madhyamika, or the school of consequential, the Madhyamika or middle way philosophy system. So in that case, right, let's assume we all are agree upon, we believe that what the school of consequential schools and asserting is the right, right, is right, is true. We are the followers of Pasangika Madhyamika. Then we must understand that by no means we cannot really agree and there is anything objectively you can pinpoint, right? Say that is me or that is that thing. In other words, if you sort of focus on your very sense of I, right? The only conclusion, the right conclusion you got to, you must draw on is that that very I is nothing other than the production of the conceptual mind. Because if you draw the conclusion, if you assert that I is something built upon or owns some kind of substantially built identity, right, or exists by its own, and then in a very subtle way, you still asserting or you believe something that is real existed, okay, or some form of independent substantially exist entity, which of course Pasankhika Madhyamika consider that's absolutely not acceptable, right? Now let's take example with our what we experiencing all the time, every day. That is to say, our identity in the community, in the society, from throughout the day. So we have to for acting, right? Ourselves say, I'm a male, or and she's a male, female, and right, have to deal with this kind of identities, right? Sexual orientation related, right, identities. And even we brought into the Buddhist the spirituality itself. We know that in Buddhism, and we have the notion of arahat. Right? So either the arahat, the identity of arahat, and the identity of a woman and a man, or a female and male, from a Madhyamika, a Pasankhika Madhyamika point of view, so if you think arahat is someone, right, who we call him arahat because of he has, right, or been sort of their way and its own power or independently exists independently, then that very arahat should be doesn't make it should be the arahat from beginning and forever. He or she is doesn't need to make an effort, right? Requires anything. Why? Because that very arahat power exists, right, upon nothing. So that the arahat is it is not the production of something. In this case, we know that arahat is the production of the successful Dharma practice. And then now let's take the example like the very thing we have to deal with the sexual gender identity. So let's say male and female. If you believe that where femaleness or maleness, manhood or womanhood, is built upon and or embedded within the self, objectively is always there, right? Then you should find out. You should be able to locate something absolutely is there, and so you don't need to name it. And being a woman is kind of always there. A man is again the same thing. So it's independently by its own. But we know that's not the case. We call someone with woman because there's something we can differentiate it best upon a certain signs or kind of characters, and there's some kind of marks and involved, right? And so we then we take it that the marks or that the sign, and then name after. that individual is woman or man. And so maybe this is a little bit complicated. Let's take another easy example. For example, like the text uses the chariot. Let's say the car, right? So we all use a motor vehicle, a car, we all drive it. And we can easily point out or simply just point out the objects, right, in the parking lots and say, my car is there, or this is my car, right? You can point out the object, say, that's my car is up there, make it, and it's as if, yes, so something that's yours, that is the car. Now, let's go find out that car that's yours. Okay. Then if you begin with your car, the question is where is the car? Not just stop at the sort of from distance or nearby next to you, say that's my car, this is my car, and not stop there. Okay. Then further ask where is the car in that object you called it that's my car, this is my car. Where? The second kind of question you ask where. Then you kind of point at the wheel, and you kind of point the door, and the front part, and the second, the back, the rear part, and top or the bottom, right? What you find is that the assembly of something, the engineers and the workers, right, and so the people, technicians, they put it together. Then you named that very thing, that assembly, the things, and essentially was existed in many pieces, right? Many pieces. So the combination or the sort of the gatherings, right, of the successful, right, the working of putting all these pieces together, and then it becomes a car. This means, although at the first, right, at the first, you point out that the object that you said that's my car or this is my car, is as if it suggested the carnage is within that object. But if you do a critical analysis, right, and you try to find out that the carnage where only you find is the pieces, right? That means the car is not, does not, that very car is not the thing, same thing, matches what you appear to in your mind, you point out, right? So the carnage is not within the object that you point out, you claim that's a car. Of course, our experience, right, and that very sort of the ending point of the finding, searching, right, led you to the point where you cannot find the car, but you find the collections of, or the pieces of, the assemblies of the pieces of the thing, parts, right? But that's not what our experience is. Our experience is that the car is there and by itself, okay, and it's running under its own power. So this kind of gaps between the thing and the car is how it appears to us, and how it real exists, and tells us that our understanding about the carnage is wrong, okay, and is mistaken. And similarly, that reminds me about a currency. For example, like a couple of years ago, and before the one thing happened in India, and a couple of years ago. Okay, let's put it this way: before a couple of years ago, 2 years ago, in India, there is a particular the currency, the Indian currency rupee, right? One type of the rupee and which its market value is worth 500 rupees. So on that dollar bill or the rupee, the Indian currency bill, you will see says 500. It indicates that rupee is 500. Right? But 2 years ago, Indian government decided to cancel the 500 rupee bills from the market, from the Indian financial market, completely withdrawn. At that point, so everybody in India who loves, or who knows, who uses, right, the 500 rupees, now it's all of a sudden it's gone. So it's no longer do anything that's $500 used to do. So it become a piece of regular bill or regular paper, a piece of paper. So this clearly indicates, right, the 500 rupees not within that very piece of handbill of the paper. It's something else, kind of aid to or been designated or been superimposed upon. So therefore, it functions like acting like what the 500 rupees used to do. Similarly, like each year, each kind of a circle of the 4 years terms of election in many Western countries, we know, right? Prior to the election, there are candidates, right, who claim want to be the head of the state, and then he or she will try hard and go through all the process of a campaign, the election, and the campaigns and the election. And then finally, he or she, the winner, will then be claimed or be recognized as the president of the state or the head of the state. So the difference has been clearly made. Prior to the inauguration ceremony, right, that person just a regular citizen or someone else, but definitely not the head of the state. However, the moment after you completed, at the point of the completion of the inauguration system, that person all of a sudden magically endured with all kinds of power and become very powerful person. So that is again this very clear indication or the evidence show that a so-called president, a head of the state, again is not something built in, and it's not come with his own on side or independently being built upon or running under its own power. It is clearly something that the so-called president is not substantially exist, but rather is the production of the conceptual mind. So if we check in, examine, and then make a very critical analysis, and then that we will understand all this, right? We will see and at what point how wrong we got, right? I must admit, the thing I'm going to try to explain and the point I'm trying to make in itself, and to me, is not a clear thing. And after all, it's just like I try to point out the something that say that is the color, that's the red, that's the yellow, the blue. But I myself actually do not experientially see that very red or blue or and yellow myself. So I'm kind of like a color blind person, tell you what the colors looks like.
Okay. Ja, dat is.
So now let's do the closing prayers.
Thank you, Geshe-la Kunga, Tempa, and Tenzin, If you would like to make a donation, it would be greatly appreciated by the monastery and the monks, and also you're donating to our translator, Tenzin. You can do this by calling 812-336-6807 or by emailing the center at tmbcc.kcl@gmail.com. For those of you here in the temple, I'll pass around the begging bowl, and if you would like to make a donation, that would be very appreciated. If not, you can just say a prayer or a mantra in the bowl. Thank you.
The Buddha of Compassion's copy, if you like to have at your home and also practice, then you may have it. Otherwise, you can leave on the table. We'll say the closing prayer on page number 80.
此人者那宗巴地也，多的南地大多着西，扎西洋宗周公教之节。宝殿藏于喇嘛人不觉道所念也八灭代修拉高的进步观念就上的过送多见我的扎的所成就成就人不觉马界八日即日听切我仰报没报而仰空灵空德陪我修抗日绕为国为神刚的本当的我马里中为你家人生活的真家所以下辈子的不多的知己将帮把我觉得了真把当更多上我的样的心得到共进接受大罗间，给我的大堂接让的我，得上下边给我堂接的，我刚了求多马巴的，大仙别找我的公家，上我就是让的我也。但得将内担保的相见，但真给我他们只更更上，路见光老的这将为内，上界担保到多解决去，才让光的要我中华为，可就是年我所遭别的。亚为我被弄上的年龄，给这怎样都不马就如今。